It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah
on 77 WABC.
Good morning. It is Liz Radabali here on the 5 o'clock news hour for Noam Layden this Thursday, February 13th. Before we get into the top stories of the day, your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Today, it's going to be some scattered light rain, high of 46. Tonight and overnight, it's going to clear up with a low of 31. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 34, and that rain and snow comes back on Saturday and should last through the weekend. Going to be a tough weekend. Saturday's high is 34. If you're heading out the door right now over in Bridgewater, New Jersey, 36 and cloudy. Up in Carmel, 32 and cloudy. And out on Long Island, it's 36 with some rain in Smithtown. Outside our Midtown studios, currently 38 and cloudy. Feels more like 33. Clouds covering most of the sky and winds blowing at 14 miles an hour outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
The Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against New York State over immigration policies. Millions of dollars in FEMA funds have been revoked from New York City. A New York woman says a man posing as an immigration enforcement officer tried to rape her. A judge rules in favor of the Trump administration's federal worker buyout. NASA is working out how to get 2 American astronauts back home after months in space. The new attorney general, is going after the Empire State for their sanctuary state laws and policies on immigration. Not only is the DOJ going after the state, but also top state officials. Attorney General Pam Bondi said yesterday the Department of Justice has filed charges against the state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul, State Attorney General Letitia James, and Mark Schroeder, the commissioner of the state's Department of Motor Vehicles. The lawsuit stems from a state law that allows people who may be in the U.S. illegally to get a driver's license. The so-called green light law was enacted partly to improve public safety on the roads, as people without licenses sometimes still drove without one or without having passed a road test. The state also makes it easier for holders of such licenses to get auto insurance, thus cutting down on crashes involving uninsured drivers. A source familiar with Hochul's plans told NBC New York that the governor and President Trump were scheduled to have lunch together at the White House today. And Hochul was preparing to leave for D.C. yesterday afternoon, but then postponed the meeting for a week when she'll be in the capital region from the 20th to the 22nd for the National Governors Association Conference. That's according to that source. The timing of the governor's decision to cancel, that's after Bondi made the surprise announcement shortly around 5 o'clock. That suggests it could be in response to that lawsuit. The Trump administration is rescinding more than $80 million in FEMA funds granted to the city to help with the migrant crisis.
The money was paid to New York City and was in our bank accounts when it was revoked, when it was seized last night from the federal government.
City Comptroller Brad Lander says his office discovered yesterday that the money, which was awarded under the Biden administration for migrant shelters and services, but not dispersed until last week, had been clawed back.
Let's be clear. This is highway robbery. This is the federal government having already allocated, authorized, awarded, invoiced, and paid $80.5 million to the city of New York.
This after the Department of Government Efficiency head Elon Musk alleged the funds are being used to house illegal migrants at luxury hotels. Lander says the feds have not been paying extraordinary prices to house immigrants.
The federal program we're talking about, the Shelter and Services Program, has a $12.50 a night cap on hotel and shelter prices.
He's calling on Mayor Adams to immediately take legal action to ensure the money illegally stolen from the city is returned. Police looking for a man that apparently posed as an immigration and customs enforcement officer before trying to rape a woman in Brooklyn. 51-year-old Hispanic woman was approached by the suspect on the street, accosted into a stairwell, and punched, and then he tried to rape her. He then took her chain and cell phone before fleeing the scene. Residents say they try to be alert as possible.
I'm not going to wear my ears as much. Because you really got to be aware of your surroundings.
Yes. Like your earphones?
Yeah. I have, my AirPods. Right. I'm not going to wear them as much walking back and forth.
Anyone with information being asked to call NYPD Crime Stoppers hotline, 1-800-577-TIPS, 1-800-577-8477. Tens of thousands of U.S. federal employees were cleared to take a buyout from Donald Trump's administration yesterday after a federal judge ruled the unprecedented downsizing effort could go forward. About 75,000 workers have signed up for that buyout, and a spokesperson for the U.S. Office of Personnel Management says that's equal to around 3% of the workforce. Civilian worker salaries count for less than 5% of the total that the Department of Government Efficiency has set their eyes on to cut from the federal budget. NASA announced this week that the two astronauts that took off in the Boeing Starliner's first ever crewed test flight will come home much sooner than expected. The space agency said it was able to adjust the schedule because it opted to swap the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule it will use to fly its Crew 10 mission, which will now launch as soon as March 12th. That's pending mission readiness. The new date could put Williams and Wilmore's scheduled return days ahead of schedule, as the space agency previously said it was targeting around late March. And that latest plans from NASA announced. However, the agency will instead make use of the Crew Dragon Endurance, which has previously flown on 3 missions. Most recently, the Crew 7 mission that returned to Earth back in March of 2024 after a 7-month stay at the space station. Democrats held an all-nighter on the Senate floor as they spoke out against Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nomination as Health and Human Services Secretary. Senators, including Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, plan to deliver protest speeches throughout the night.
He is disqualified, dangerous, and cannot be given the power to make critical health care decisions.
Warren says RFK Jr. should not be confirmed as HHS Secretary.
I urge my colleagues to vote no on his nomination.
Illinois Senator Dick Durbin urges his colleagues as well to vote against that nomination.
They know Mr. Kennedy is not the right choice for the job, and they know our children will suffer the most if he becomes HHS Secretary. I hope they'll find the courage to join me and reject his nomination.
The final vote on that confirmation is set for this morning. While it appears Democrats don't have enough votes to block his confirmation, they're still voicing their discontent. President Donald Trump is not saying whether he feels Ukraine and Russia are equal in their efforts to end the war between the two.
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace.
Trump said he believes he'll meet with Vladimir Putin multiple times.
We expect that he'll come here and I'll go there, and we're going to meet also probably in Saudi Arabia. The first time we'll meet in Saudi Arabia, see if we can get something done. But we want to end that war. That war is a disaster.
He went on to say that things have changed with Russia since he became president again.
President Putin wants to have peace now, and that's good. And he didn't want to have peace with Biden.
Conversation with Putin.
And you tell me why that is, okay?
That was yesterday from the White House. Once again, he said that he felt the two made peace and said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky would have to do what he has to do when asked about him potentially giving up territory as part of negotiations. Trump says he spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin and they will immediately start negotiations to end the war following a, quote, highly productive call. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth says Ukraine joining NATO is not realistic. He made the comment ahead of a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contract Group in Brussels.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement.
Hegseth went on to say that the responsibility for securing a post-war Ukraine must fall on European troops, not American.
Any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission.
Hegseth reiterating that no American troops will be sent to the region.
To be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine.
Hegseth is on his first trip abroad since being confirmed as defense secretary. He visited with troops in Germany yesterday. Some big names are resigning from the Kennedy Center after President Donald Trump put himself in charge. Tammy Trujillo reports.
The president recently named himself chair of the National Culture Center after firing the previous chairman, the president of the center, and board of trustees members who were not appointed by him. Now other members are resigning, including TV producer Shonda Rhimes, who was serving as treasurer for the board. Musician Ben Folds was serving as an artistic advisor to the National Symphony Orchestra and announced his resignation on Instagram Wednesday by saying, "Not for me." I'm Tammy Trujillo.
The White House says yesterday's inflation report shows the Biden administration left them a, quote, mess to deal with. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the previous administration was not transparent in where the economy truly was.
People at this very podium told the American people that inflation was transitory and that it would go away. That was not the case. And now the last report of the Biden administration, as revealed today, shows that inflation is still about 4.5% higher over the past 3 months.
Leavitt said the Biden administration left an economic mess.
The Biden administration indeed left us with a mess to deal with. It's far worse than I think anybody anticipated because, unfortunately, the previous administration was not transparent in where the economy truly was.
She said it's pretty obvious who's at fault.
This is an indictment on the Biden administration's mismanagement of the inflation crisis and their lack of transparency.
The latest Consumer Price Index report showed the annual inflation ticked up 3% last month. She added the CPI report is an indictment on the Biden administration's mismanagement of the inflation crisis. Leavitt said Trump wants interest rates to be lower, and that will lead to lower inflation. The audio from the deadly 2023 Titan submersible explosion has been released. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says the sound is from a recorder about 900 miles from the site of the implosion. All 5 people on the board of that submersible were killed on the way to view the wreckage of the Titanic. That clip lasts just over 20 seconds. 77 WABC News Time, 5:15. Time to head over to the sports desk with Justin Ellick. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Liz. Thank you very much. Start here in the NBA and on the hardwood at the Garden. Jalen Brunson made the go-ahead jumper with just over 11 seconds left in overtime. Karl Anthony Towns scored 44 points, and the Knicks outlasted the Atlanta Hawks 149-148 in a thrilling final game before the All-Star break for New York. Towns reached 40 points in consecutive games for the first time in his career and became the 5th Knicks player to do so. Brunson, who was the last Knicks player to do it, added 36 points and 8 assists. Every Knicks starter played at least 42 minutes. Towns led the way at just over 47. A 9th win in 11 games sends New York into the break 3rd in the Eastern Conference at 36-18. Out in Brooklyn, D'Angelo Russell had 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, and the Nets beat the Philadelphia 76ers 196 in their last game before the All-Star break. Nick Claxton had 13 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 blocks, and Cam Johnson added 16 points and 6 rebounds. Trendon Watford scored 18 points off the bench for Brooklyn, which won its 3rd straight. They closed the first half on an upswing by getting their 6th win in 7 games. They've allowed fewer than 100 points in each of those past 6 wins. The All-Star break will officially begin across the NBA after today's league action, and All-Star festivities will get underway this weekend in San Francisco. Checking in on ice hockey and the NHL, where the Four Nations Face-Off round-robin tournament being played in place of this year's All-Star game got underway last night in Montreal between Team Canada and Team Sweden, with Canada securing the 4-3 overtime victory over Sweden. McKinnon, Marchand, Marner, and Stone registered goals for Team Canada, while Eriksson, Kempe, and Broden found the back of the net for Team Sweden. Team USA will begin their campaign tonight against Team Finland. Puck drop from Montreal is scheduled for 8 p.m. And lastly, news trickled in out of the MLB offseason yesterday as well. Free agent Alex Bregman has a new home after agreeing to a 3-year, $120 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. The $40 million annual salary is $10 million plus more per year than any other team was offering. The deal includes 2 opt-outs and deferred money. Bregman, who was the biggest free agent remaining on the market, is expected to play second base for Boston after primarily playing third for the Houston Astros since 2020. That's your sports, Liz, and I'm Justin Hollick on 77 WABC.
In some local news, Mayor Eric Adams is set to meet with President Trump's border czar today, fresh off the Department of Justice ordering prosecutors to dismiss the federal charges against him. The mayor's lawyer, Alex Spiro, insists there's no quid pro quo involved over immigration or anything else.
There is no looming threat. This case is over. This case will never be brought back.
Adams insists that he is not beholden to President Trump.
Look at the record. Look at what I have done, how I have recovered the city.
Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson says she has some real concerns.
I want to make sure we protect immigrants. We cannot have a system where we're opening our doors to ICE and federal law enforcement agencies.
This despite the fact that charges are being dismissed without prejudice, meaning they could be revived. The mayor was in Queens yesterday meeting with seniors and was asked by a reporter on his way in how he could reassure the public he has their interests at heart and not President Trump's. He simply said, "Look at the record, look at what I've done. I've recovered the city." And more on Adams. He says he will continue to work to regain the trust of voters, but people say forget about it.
That's not happening, ever.
Once you break the trust, that's it. We can't trust you after that. That's like the boy who cried wolf. Can you trust him after that? No.
I don't trust none of them. Who cares?
As re-election looms, some New Yorkers are more likely to vote for Adams than others.
Why not? I don't know. I don't see why not.
Maybe, because it depends who's next in office that is going to compete with him. Let's see.
I didn't vote for him in the first place. I haven't voted for a while because every one of the candidates is not a good choice.
And do people plan on re-electing Adams?
Hell no, I'm going to vote for him. I won't vote for none of them, really. They're all crooks, all crooks. I don't vote for nobody.
He's a crook. He's a criminal. He is a suck-up to Donald Trump. So in other words, he sucks.
Once again, that coming as the DOJ moved to dismiss corruption charges against the mayor, with Adams saying he wants to move forward from what he calls, quote, a cruel episode. The DOJ dropping the charges without prejudice, meaning they could charge him again. Some have suggested that Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg could potentially take up the case. Reverend Al Sharpton says Mayor Adams is in an unfair position and feels Trump has politically blackmailed him. And just a reminder, New York does have closed primaries, and the deadline to file your party registration is tomorrow here in the city. And the lawyer for City Mayor Eric Adams is going after the prosecutor who brought the corruption case against the mayor. Alex Spiro addressed reporters after the DOJ ordered those prosecutors to drop their case against the mayor.
Does it make sense to take out the mayor of the most important city on this country over a novel legal theory with one witness? And any other prosecutor, I think, other than this office that had evaluated that, would have said no.
He says the case was political and they figured out a way to invent a crime when referring to prosecutor Damian Williams in the Southern District of New York. Spiro says they brought a case without any evidence. In the memo to drop the case, the department did not mention the case itself, but said charges have restricted Mayor Adams' ability to give attention to the migrant situation and violent crime here in the city. And more from Adams, a Democrat who has been reportedly talking with influential Republicans about possible paths for running for re-election as a member of the GOP. The New York Times reports Adams spoke with Mike Rendino, the chairman of the Bronx Republican Party. Rendino says Adams asked about how he could run on the GOP line as he seeks re-election this year. The report says Adams had also considered paths that would let him run as Republican and a Democrat. The conversations timed with recent movements from the Justice Department on those still pending corruption charges. The Times also says Adams spoke with Manhattan GOP Chair Andrea Katzimatidis, though it's not sure if what was talked about was election related. A baby birth on New York City's subway train yesterday morning appears to also have solved a family mystery. Cell phone cameras were rolling as Jenny St. Pierre gave birth to a little girl on board a southbound W train around 11:30 yesterday. The conductor stopped the train at the 34th Street Herald Square station for EMS. The 25-year-old mom and baby are fine. The New York Times reports St. Pierre, who's from Hallandale Beach, Florida, had been reported missing there since last summer. Her sister, Stefania, saw the video of the birth on social media. She told the paper, "Oh my God, I'm going to cry. That's my first niece." 2 NYPD officers are recovering after they were attacked by a commuter in Manhattan. Officers were at the West 4th Street station yesterday afternoon when they approached a man who was drinking on the platform. Officers say the man became agitated, broke a wine bottle, and then used shards from that broken wine bottle to slash one officer in the hand. As multiple officers tried to take that man into custody, he bit another one in the leg. That man now facing numerous charges. Heading to the mall used to be a rite of passage for teens, and now, despite how online shopping has changed things, a spot in Lake Grove out on Long Island is getting a makeover.
The Smith Haven Mall is set to undergo a multi-million-dollar renovation soon. Indianapolis-based Simon Property Group owns the Lake Grove Shopping Center and just announced it will be adding an outdoor plaza, new restaurants, and additional stores, including a Zara, a Spanish clothing store, a virtual golf experience, Lounge 18, scheduled to open in March. The entire project breaks ground this summer with the goal of being finished by 2026. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
New York City is highlighting its diverse workforce as President Donald Trump issues executive orders to curb initiatives aimed at diversity, equity, and inclusion. Comptroller Brad Lander slamming President Donald Trump's latest actions.
His executive orders are forcing federal agencies to roll back civil rights and anti-discrimination protections that have been in place since the Lyndon Johnson administration.
Lander and Reverend Al Sharpton joined with public advocate Jumaane Williams to recognize its diverse workforce managing billions of dollars worth of city pensions. Williams explains what DEI programs set out to do.
All it says is that we should take measures to make sure that people who are qualified and can do the job are in the spaces and applicant pools to be chosen.
Reverend Al Sharpton says President Trump claims DEI programs don't hire candidates based on merit.
Can you imagine a man with 34 felony convictions and a sexual harassment conviction talking about merit? He couldn't fill out a resume at any one of these firms that's standing here. So merit has nothing to do with this.
Lander says major companies like Walmart and Amazon have already started rolling back diversity and equity initiatives in advance, even though data shows that diversity in their senior leadership and employees can help financial performance.
Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
It is Liz Radabali here on the 5 o'clock hour, filling in for Noam Layden this fine February 13th. Good morning. And before we dive back into the headlines, your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Today, it's going to be some scattered light rain. Pack that umbrella. It's going to be a high of 46. Tonight and overnight, mostly clear with a low of 31. Tomorrow, sun comes out, high of 34. And looking ahead into the weekend, going to be a rainy weekend. Saturday, rain and possible snow, high of 34. If you're heading out the door right now, over in Bridgewater, 37 and cloudy. Up in Carmel, 33 and cloudy. Out in Smithtown, there's still some rain accumulating right now, and high right now of 37. Currently 38 and cloudy outside our Midtown studios. In some national news, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the judges pushing back on recent orders from the executive branch are acting outside their powers.
Now, before I take questions, I would like to address an extremely dishonest narrative that we've seen emerging over the past few days. Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. And they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump.
This coming as President Trump's employee buyout plan is back on the table for roughly 2 million federal workers. Last month, Trump offered money to millions of federal employees to get them to quit, but multiple labor unions filed lawsuits soon after, saying the administration did not have the legal authority to offer those buyouts. A judge issued a temporary freeze on the administration's offer, but then yesterday, the same judge announced the unions lacked legal standing in their lawsuits. And also yesterday from the White House, Leavitt defending the work of DOJ, or the Department of Government Efficiency, for recent cuts to government agencies. The first hearing on the House's DOJ subcommittee began yesterday. Chair Marjorie Taylor Greene said the committee is ready to get to work.
This committee will be laser focused on bringing full transparency to waste, fraud, and abuse within the federal government and presenting the plans to fix the tremendous problems we expose.
Greene said the issue belongs to everyone.
This is not a Democrat problem. This is not a Republican problem. This is an American problem.
Proving that it's a bipartisan issue, New Mexico Democrat Melanie Stansbury said the committee serves a major need.
Today's hearing is focused on making sure that the federal government is doing what it's supposed to and digging into the more than $236 billion in improper payments that we see going out the door every single year.
The Delivering on Government Efficiency subcommittee is the congressional counterpart to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. The hearing comes after President Trump signed an executive order giving the Musk-led DOJ more power to reshape the federal government. Former FBI Special Agent Stuart Whitson detailed the work already done by DOJ.
Already, DOJ efforts have brought to the public's attention countless examples of wasteful spending, including $59 million paid to luxury hotels in New York to house illegal immigrants.
The theme of yesterday's hearing was the war on waste, stamping out the scourge of improper payments and fraud. The subcommittee is hearing from 3 witnesses, including the director of the United Council on Welfare Fraud. The social media company X has agreed to pay about $10 million to settle a lawsuit by President Trump. Trump sued the platform back when it was known as Twitter after it deleted his account following the January 6th Capitol riot. Twitter said the account was deleted because there was a risk that Trump would incite further violence in an effort to stay in office following his election loss to Joe Biden. Trump argued that by removing him, Twitter had violated his First Amendment right to free speech. The lawsuit was then settled by X, which now owned by Elon Musk, who is part of the Trump administration. FDNY says hydrants blocked by parked cars stopped efforts to fight a deadly fire at a Bronx Buddhist temple. Firefighters lost precious time in getting water onto those flames because they had to go around the cars to connect their hoses.
When the hydrants are blocked, it does make it more difficult. It does slow us down a little bit. Our firefighters are very well trained, but certainly if those hydrants were not blocked, it's a little bit of a smoother, quicker operation.
That's FDNY Chief John Esposito. The 3-alarm fire tore through a building on Anthony Avenue near East 180th Street around 6 a.m. and then spread to a temple next door. Esposito has a warning to drivers who park in front of hydrants.
We all know we should not be parking on fire hydrants.
Neighbor Shafo Salam witnessed that fire.
I see just a huge fire just going like crazy, Yeah, I mean, the reaction is very bad, The reaction, seeing the fire there, and then you're getting scared because, the fire keeps spreading to go to the next door.
2 people were trapped in the home. They were pulled out, but did not end up making it. The Red Cross is helping a half dozen displaced residents. The cause of the fire remains under investigation, and it was just a few days ago when blocked hydrants complicated efforts to battle a fire at an apartment building in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. The new Attorney General going after the Empire State for sanctuary laws and policies on immigration. The DOJ going after the state, but also top state officials. Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing yesterday the DOJ filing charges against the state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul, State Attorney General Letitia James, and the head of the state's Department of Motor Vehicles.
New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. As you know, we sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next. Millions of illegal aliens with violent records have flooded into our communities, bringing violence and deadly drugs with them.
The lawsuit stems from a state law allowing people who may be in the U.S. illegally to get driver's licenses. The so-called green light law was enacted partly to improve public safety on the roads as people who don't have licenses still can drive without one or without having passed a road test. The state also makes it easier for holders of those licenses to get auto insurance, thus cutting down on crashes involving uninsured drivers. New York State is awarding $150 million to Suffolk County as well to connect Ronkonkoma Station to MacArthur Airport. In a visit to Suffolk today, Governor Kathy Hochul announced the money will be used for infrastructure, helping to build a pedestrian walkway between the Long Island Railroad Station and the proposed northern terminal.
I mean, that is real convenience. People used to take an Uber before, right? They're taking an Uber now. They're getting a cab. They're taking a long walk. Let's just make it easier on people.
She says the walkway is expected to save people time. Islip Town Supervisor Angie Carpenter says the new terminal and money for the walkway will give the area a much-needed boost.
This investment, we are laying the foundation for long-term economic growth, bringing in the kind of high-quality jobs.
Suffolk is looking for a new developer to place a new terminal on 179 acres after it canceled a contract with the previous developer. A South Jersey community may be dealing with a bird flu outbreak after dead geese were found at 3 Monmouth County parks. 24 were discovered dead recently at Sensi Park, Heritage Park, and Dr. Farmer's Park in Allentown.
We're taking every precaution necessary to keep people safe.
Allentown Mayor Thomas Fritz says those parks are closed as officials wait on results from those geese. Fritz is concerned about bird flu possibly spreading from geese to humans.
It's the droppings of the geese that people can get infected by. Their pets can get infected by this as well.
He's urging anyone who comes across a dead bird not to feed it and avoid touching it. Call any authorities as well. There's also signs posted to stay away from the water and do not feed the geese. Changes and restrictions are coming on New Jersey transit routes to and from Philadelphia as the city gets ready to celebrate the Eagles' Super Bowl win. The biggest change is a ban on all drinks. The transit line says it's banning all beverages on trains and buses going to and from Philly tomorrow, not just alcohol. They say it will be strictly enforced. They're also sending reminders that any disorderly, aggressive, or intoxicated behavior will not be tolerated. And those who plan on seeing who plan to take the trains can expect to see extra police on them. NJ Transit also adding extra service in and out of Philly before and after tomorrow's scheduled parade. And authorities in Toms River say 5 Ocean County residents have been arrested as part of an investigation into drug sales in the area. Investigators identified a home on Walnut Street, which they described as a hub for sales of crack cocaine. Ocean County officials say 20-year-old Keith Morse of Tom Rivers used the home to store and sell cocaine. He remains in Ocean County Jail. 77 WABC News Time, 5:45. Let's head over to the sports desk with Justin Ellick. Good morning, Justin.
Well, good morning, Liz. You are going to need some extra security there.
I was about to say, are you going to be on an NJ Transit train?
No, I won't be. I'll be here. Some might say unfortunately, but come on, Liz. Come on, I love coming in here every day. What? I wouldn't rather be on a train to Philadelphia to celebrate a Super Bowl championship. No. Why would I do that? Come on. I got to be here with Louie.
Yeah, it's way more fun.
Come on, please.
Then be arrested? Yeah.
Right, he's right. If I did go Friday, there's no guaranteeing.
Yeah,
I'm even back. I'm even
bookings.
I'm even back for Monday show. It's not guaranteed there, Liz. Let's get into.
You know who I am? I'm Justin Ellick.
Come on, I need to be back in New York tonight. 6 a.m.
Number one morning show.
There you go. We'll start here on the hardwood, though. Liz out in the NBA at the Garden. Jalen Brunson made the go-ahead jumper with just over 11 seconds left in overtime. Karl Anthony Towns scored 44 points, and the Knicks outlasted the Atlanta Hawks 149-148 in a thrilling final game before the All-Star break for New York. Towns reached 40 points in consecutive games for the first time in his career and became the 5th Knicks player to do so. Brunson, who was the last Knicks player to do it, added 36 and 8 assists. Every Knicks starter played at least 42 minutes. Towns led the way at just over 47. A 9th win in 11 games sends New York into the break, 3rd in the Eastern Conference at 36 and 18. Out in Brooklyn, D'Angelo Russell had 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, and the Nets beat the 76ers 196 in their last game before the All-Star break. Nick Claxton had 13 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 blocks, and Cam Johnson added 16 points and 6 rebounds. Trendon Watford scored 18 off the bench for Brooklyn, which won its 3rd straight. They closed the first half on an upswing by getting their 6th win in 7 games. The Nets have allowed fewer than 100 points in each of those past 6 wins. The All-Star break will officially begin across the NBA after today's league action, and All-Star festivities will get underway this weekend out west in San Francisco. Checking in on ice hockey and the NHL. 4 nations face-off round-robin tournament being played in place of this year's All-Star game. Got underway last night in Montreal between Team Canada and Team Sweden, with Canada securing the 4-3 overtime victory over Sweden, much to our chagrin here. McKinnon, Marchand, Marner, and Stone registered goals for Team Canada. Eriksson, Kempe, and Broden found the back of the net for Team Sweden. Team USA will begin their campaign tonight against Team Finland. Puck drop from Montreal is scheduled for 8 p.m. And lastly, news trickled out of the MLB offseason yesterday as well. Free agent Alex Bregman has a new home after agreeing to a 3-year, $120 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. $40 million annual salary is $10 million plus more per year than any other teams were offering. The deal includes 2 opt-outs and deferred money. Bregman, who was the biggest free agent remaining on the market, is expected to play second base for Boston. Sources did reveal after primarily playing third for the Houston Astros since 2020. That's your Sports List. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Flu cases are spiking across the country with the rapid spread of a new dangerous strain. The CDC estimates there's been 24 million cases of the flu this season. That's led to 310,000 hospitalizations and 13,000 deaths. The number of flu-related doctor visits has climbed to a 15-year high. House Republicans are one House Republican is trying to get people to sign a petition to deport Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Brian Shook reports.
Omar, a Minnesota Democrat, became a U.S. citizen in 2000 after fleeing Somalia's civil war. Texas Republican Brandon Gill is circulating the petition claiming Omar is biased toward illegal immigrants. Several Democrats have criticized Gill and the Republican Party. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal wrote on X, "It's disgusting that Republicans are attempting to raise money by threatening to deport a U.S. citizen just because they disagree with her." I'm Brian Shook.
An American is being released from a Belarusian prison. U.S. Special Envoy for Hostage Affairs Adam Bowler made the announcement crediting President Donald Trump for that achievement.
And so I think when you see the president of Belarus doing that, whether people like him, whether they don't, it's definitely somebody trying to change the tone with the administration.
Bowler says President Trump should be given credit for securing that release.
The smartest thing you can do to curry favor with the president of the United States is bring Americans home. He's been clear about that.
Bowler appeared to suggest that President Biden was partially to blame for the Americans' imprisonment, crediting Trump for securing that release.
I firmly believe that a lot of these issues wouldn't have happened if he were president, some of the broader issues.
He said the American was among 3 prisoners released. Bowler added that the American wishes to remain private. That release comes a day after Pennsylvania teacher Mark Fogel was released from his wrongful imprisonment in Russia. 8 inspectors general who were fired by President Trump are taking legal action. Mike Ware is one of the former independent government watchdogs who is a plaintiff in that lawsuit filed yesterday.
We brought suit basically to stand up for independent and transparent government oversight. That's the main reason.
Mike Ware, the former inspector general of the Small Business Administration, says IGs play an important role.
IGs are independent. We're nonpartisan, which means that we are the taxpayers' advocates within each of government agencies.
The former inspectors general asking a judge to declare their dismissals as illegal and be reinstated. Trump fired 17 inspectors general last month without the required 30 days notice to Congress. The former inspector general for Veterans Affairs said fired inspectors general are taking legal action so that they could go back to work fighting fraud, waste, and abuse on behalf of the American public. Inflation rose more last month than was expected. January's Consumer Price Index, which measures the costs in goods and services, increased by 0.5% for the month. As Benji Heyer reports, it also pushed the yearly inflation rate to 3%, slightly higher than projections.
Donald Trump ran for office on a pledge to decrease costs for Americans, yet inflation remains a problem under his term. And since retaking the White House, he's announced a series of tariffs which will lift prices even more. Some goods are soaring in value. Take eggs, they're up 53% in January compared to a year ago.
Excluding food and energy prices, the CPI jumped 0.4% in January, putting the yearly rate at 3.3%. Reacting to the report, the White House said it shows the Biden administration left them a mess to deal with. A movement called the Latino Freeze is emerging among leaders, urging shoppers to boycott major retailers like Target, Walmart, and McDonald's. This comes in response to stores cutting back on their DEI programs.
If you don't respect our community, then, you shouldn't have our dollars.
That's civil rights leader Dolores Huerta, who is leading that national movement. Dr. Caroline Chen, a professor at San Jose University, says Latinos have significant buying power, around $3.5 trillion, making the boycott potentially impactful. However, for it to be effective, she says it must last longer than a month.
If it was 2 months, 3 months, 6, et cetera, maybe then you'd make significant inroads to hurting those particular companies economically.
Moving to some entertainment news, a few hundred fans got the chance to catch surprise shows by a former Beatle at a small New York City club this week. Paul McCartney gave just a one-day notice when he announced he was playing this past Tuesday night at the Bowery Ballroom, which has a capacity of only 600. Tickets were available only at the box office, and not surprisingly, they sold out quickly. He returned to the venue last night for a second show. Sir Paul has not announced a new album, but in a Q&A on his website back in December, he said one of his New Year's resolutions was to, quote, finish an album. Artists that date back to the 60s and 70s and to the 90s and still on the charts today are all among the 8 first-time nominees for the 2025 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. A total of 14 nominees were announced yesterday. Chubby Checker, nominated for the first time nearly 65 years after The Twist, spent 3 weeks on top of the Billboard Hot 100. Bad Company and Joe Cocker also among the first-timers, along with the Black Crowes, Billy Idol, Fish, Outkast, and Latin rock band Mana. They joined repeat nominees Mariah Carey, Cyndi Lauper, Oasis, Soundgarden, White Stripes, and Joy Division, which later became New Order. Fan voting on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame website is open through April 21st.
Ain't nowhere I'd rather be than in a 4x4 by you.
Country star Lainey Wilson is engaged. The reigning CMA and ACM Entertainer of the Year is getting married to her longtime boyfriend, former Pittsburgh Steelers player Devlin Duck Hodges. The official announcement was made on the couple's social media pages yesterday, along with a series of photos and videos of that special moment.
Wait till I give my money right.
A video of celebrities flipping off Kanye West is actually a deepfake. A minute-long black and white video showed multiple celebrities wearing white shirts with a middle finger, Star of David, and Kanye's name. Self-proclaimed generative AI expert, creator, and advertiser named Ori Barahano posted the video on YouTube. It came after Kanye sold T-shirts with a swastika on his website before Shopify shut that website down. Gearing up for the Sid and Friends in the Morning Show, Justin, what you got on deck today?
Well, first off, Liz, I got to tell you, I'm just absolutely heartbroken that Lainey Wilson is off the market.
You're not going to slide in the DM, shoot your shot?
I fell in love with her first sight when I saw her in Yellowstone playing that guitar. You know, those beautiful vocals. My goodness gracious. She is a sight to behold. But, yeah, congratulations
you were so
to
close,
her.
too.
you were. She almost chose you.
I was out there. I don't know what she's waiting for. My God. Anyway, we'll get this Thursday edition of Sid and Friends in the Morning off and running in just a few minutes here. Liz, in the way of guests, kicking us off at 6:45, it is Brian Kilmeade, right before Curtis Lewood joins us live in studio, as is the case every day, at 7:15. The great former Congressman Anthony D'Esposito, he had some very nice words in an article about Sid yesterday. He'll join us at 7:45, right before the great Artie Aidala, the criminal defense attorney, hops on the program at 8:30. We'll talk to the big bad Bill O'Reilly, segment of the week, at 8:45. And in the 9 a.m. hour, we'll talk to our good buddy, the great sports radio personality, Joe Beningo. It's all coming up, Liz, on this Friday Eve edition of Sid and Friends in the Morning, coming at you in just a few short moments.
All-star lineup. Thanks, Justin. That's the News Hour this morning, Thursday, February 13th. I'm Liz Ranabali, filling in for Noam Layden here on 77 WABC.